home again in Indiana. It's time for the 31st running of the Women's Little 500. Kappa Alpha Theta looks to build on their dynasty, defending their title and looking for their 4th first place finish in the last 5 years, but it is a competitive field surrounding them. 1 year of training for 1 day in April. It's here, the Little 500. We welcome you inside the broadcast booth. David Sugarman, one-time broadcaster alongside Caitlin Van Kooten, two-time Little 500 champion. Caitlin, it's race day.
It's race day. Happy race day. It is beautiful in here in Bloomington. The crowds have filtered in. We've been watching the riders warm up. You can really feel the excitement on the track.
Absolutely. Kappa Alpha Theta excited for another chance at another title. Just a dynasty in the making.
Yeah, incredible team. They won in a great fashion last year, and I think we're going to see them really defend this year.
And 1 and 2 in quals identical to last year. Delta Gamma, who finished 3rd in last year's race, again the pole position.
Yeah, we see Delta Gamma out there in green again. They are a younger team than they were last year. They don't have their senior captain from last year, but they have 2 riders in the top 10 of ITTs, and I think we're going to see them in the mix.
Certainly a very top-heavy field with Delta Gamma and Kappa Alpha Theta, some fan favorites. And you mentioned a gorgeous day here for the Little 500. For more on the weather and how it may affect or help the riders, let's introduce the 3rd member of our crew, pit reporter Courtney Robb. Courtney.
Thanks, guys. Like you mentioned, it's a gorgeous day here in the infield. Perfect weather conditions so far. A high of 61 degrees. Some wind, 9 miles per hour coming out of the northeast. Could present some issues. Sun could also be an issue visibility wise. And the track right now is looking a little bit dry, but I talked to Alpha Sigma Alpha rider Anna Darling, and she said that those she didn't think would be enough to cause any crashes or any big things in the race today. So right now it's looking like a gorgeous day for the 31st running of the Women's Little 500. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Courtney. And so there is a little bit of wind. How could that affect the riders today?
Yeah, the wind makes it harder to stay out front, or if you're behind, to catch up. So we're a little less likely to see a team break away, and it might be more difficult for a team that finds themselves behind to catch up with the pack.
1 and 2 the same this year, Delta Gamma, Kappa Alpha Theta, but there are some talented teams surrounding them just behind.
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch AGD race this year. This is their coach Chris West's 2nd year coaching and Captain Aaron Adair's 2nd race. They sat down at the end of last year and talked about what they wanted to do this year, and they said, you know, we really want to be in contention for the race. So they completely revamped how they train. They trained a full fall schedule, went on their first winter break training trip, and we've really seen it have a big impact on their performance. Adair moved from 33 up to the top 10 in ITTs, and then her teammate Alyssa Todd went from 74th to top 10. Huge improvement. So I think we're going to see great things from them today.
They finished 12th last year, and they'll certainly be in the top 10, but very possible a spot on the podium for Alpha Gamma Delta. But it hasn't all just been hard work. They've had a little bit of fun as too, including a trip to Disneyland over winter break.
Yeah, we had like a rest day in the middle, and so we decided we were so close to Disney, so we all decided to get tickets to Disney, and it was a lot of fun.
It was really fun.
It was a good way to like relieve all of our biking. We were biking so much, so just to have like that day and just relax. And I mean, it was still a workout walking around the park.
Favorite ride?
Ooh.
I had never been, so I liked
It was like
the
the
whole
Space Mountain
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
Isn't that the first one we went on?
Yeah,
Something
Space
like
Mountain.
that.
That was really fun.
That was fun.
I don't know. We watched the fireworks too.
Yeah.
I cried a little bit, I'm not gonna lie.
Does it compare to the pomp and circumstance of race day, or?
Oh, race day is better.
Yeah.
I would pick
100%.
race day over Disney every day.
So if she cried at Disneyland, we got to believe she'll certainly be emotional if they get on the podium today, Caitlin.
Yeah, I think anyone who gets up there is really emotional.
A team that will start off the front of the pack, but is certainly a contender coming into today even after a bad quals, is Melanzana.
Melanzana has the top rider on the track, Brooke Hannon. She broke a 10-year ITT record. She was there for the top 3 and missing out. And I think the interesting thing about this team is when you look at ITTs, it looks like it's Brooke, and then she doesn't have other riders with her in the top 10, but they came out in one team pursuit, which shows that this team has a lot of depth. I think there's going to be more than just Brooke Hannon that we're going to see do good things out there.
Melanzana did not qual well, and they'll also set back because of a penalty during the practice race. For more on that, let's check back in with Courtney. Court?
Thanks, guys. So you can see right over there is the penalty box where Melanzana is going to be serving a 20-second penalty. That's the max penalty that a team can serve in the Little 500. I talked to Andrea Balzano about it, and she said that's not enough to actually break a contending team in this race. And then I had the chance to talk to Brooke Hannon, and she said they have a strategy. She asked me not exactly to give that away, but they plan on serving it early, and they're going for the gold today. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Courtney. So we won't give away Melanzana's race day strategy, but if, as someone who's ridden in the race 3 times, Caitlin, if you were set back that far and had a bad calls, what would be your strategy going in?
You know, at a minimum, 20 seconds is going to be a half lap back. You also have to decelerate and accelerate after you serve the penalty, so we could see them lose as much as 3/4 of a lap. It's going to depend on how the field reacts.
And in a race that's 100 laps, half the length of the men's race, how much could a crash affect them early on if they're involved?
Yeah, they're going to need to get back up early. I think they want to try to get contact with the pack before they hit lap 60 so that they're there to recover and be able to finish strong for the end. After they serve that penalty, they're going to need to go into time trial mode. They're going to need to do everything they can to catch back up without completely blowing themselves up and not having energy to finish the race.
Melanzana finished 6th in last year's race. It was Kappa Alpha Theta who won the race. To see how it all went down, let's take a look at our 2017 race recap.
We didn't have the best of weather conditions for the 2017 Women's Little 500, but the rainy skies and cool temperatures didn't dampen the enthusiasm of those gathered at Bill Armstrong Stadium to celebrate the 30th running of the women's race. It was Delta Gamma on the pole to start things off with. Several teams in contention early, but a huge crash right at the start-finish line on lap 35 takes out several teams, including one of the contenders, Kappa Alpha Theta, but Theta able to get right back on the bike, catch back up with the pack, and not lose a lap due to that accident. Big happenings here on lap 70 as the leaders come into pit and Kappa Alpha Theta hits the afterburners. They'd take a 30-second lead on the pack. They'd actually lose it briefly late in the race, but they'd get it back and they would coast to a 4-second victory. Kappa Alpha Theta picks up their 7th win in house history. It was Alpha Omicron Pi in 2nd place and the pole sitter Delta Gamma finishing in 3rd.
Have yourself a day. So Theta had themselves a day, finishing in 1st, Delta Gamma in 3rd, and sandwiched in between them was AO Pi.
Yeah, a real surprise finish. 2nd was the house's top finish ever.
Yeah, and they've improved every year since 2012. That year they finished 29th. 2 years ago, their first top 5 finished. Last year, 2nd. They've had a great ascension. They're in the 8th. They're starting in the 8th position today.
Yeah, we might see them in the mix, but I think the story is going to be up front with Theta defending. You know, that race last year was really exciting. Theta actually crashed, caught back up. DG had the best sprinter in the field, so Theta had to go off the front to make the win happen, and they did just that.
There's a lot of people that make this race great what it is, and they're not all riding in the race. We have Tori Blackwell, steering committee president, standing by with Courtney Robb.
Thanks, guys. Yes, I'm here with steering committee president Tori Blackwell. Tori, first, let's talk about your pants.
Oh, my pants. Yep. So these are the president pants. They've been passed down for a long time, and every year the president of steering committee wears them for the race.
Can you just quickly, for those who don't know, kind of give a description of what steering committee does for the race?
Yeah. So steering committee is the group of senior leaders that is in charge of the IU Student Foundation. So there's 25 of us this year, and we have like 6 or 7 different committees depending on the semester, and we basically help organize every aspect of what the IU Student Foundation does.
So is everything going smoothly for you guys today?
So far so good. The weather's amazing, the best weather I think we've had all spring, so we're all pretty happy. Yeah, so far very smooth.
All right, well, I hope it stays that way. Thanks, Tori. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Courtney, and thanks for joining us, Tori. And just one of the people that make this race what it is behind the scenes, doing the grunt work to make it look as beautiful as it does today.
There's tremendous work IUSF puts in behind the scenes. This is really a student-run event, behind the scenes and on the track.
The race just a few minutes away. We should probably brush up on the rules. 100 laps, that's just over 25 miles, 25.47 miles to be exact. Each team can have a maximum of 4 riders. There are a couple of teams with 3, and they only have to make a minimum of 5 exchanges throughout the race, but most teams make more than that, no, Caitlin?
Yeah, I think you're going to see the typical team make 10 to 15 exchanges.
Now, there are several flags to look out for throughout the race. Of course, the green is the first one. We'll see the starting signal that will clear the course and get things going. The black flag is to ride on the outside of the track. And, of course, the checkered black and white flag, no introduction needed on that one, Caitlin.
No, that means you are the winner. A couple other flags to look out for are the yellow flag. If you see the yellow flag, that means we're under caution. And that's usually because we've had some type of crash where it's unsafe to be racing at full speed. And yellows really affect the race in an interesting way because riders have to maintain their position. So if a team is out front, it can help them preserve that position. But if you're behind, a yellow's your worst nightmare because that means the race is getting away from you and your time to catch up is dwindling away.
Yeah, unable to make up any ground. Fingers crossed, though, for as little yellow as possible, short of course, the yellow jersey on Kappa Alpha Theta. You know, we've talked a lot of X's and O's and strategy so far today, but everyone gets on the bike for a different reason. Emily Mailman from Phi Mu has a very special one.
Everyone wants to win the Little 500, that's for certain. But Emily Mailman hopes to come out of race day with something more.
I hope he's seen all that I've accomplished and that he's proud of me.
After a 13-year battle with multiple sclerosis, avid cyclist Steve Mailman passed away on a Wednesday in 2003. Emily was just 4 years old.
It's not really supposed to be a disease you die from, but unfortunately my father kind of had the worst end of it. So he ended up passing away from complications of MS.
Years later, she signed up for her first cycling series, one dedicated to the fight against MS.
I had just learned how to ride a bike. I was in 6th grade. I was 12 or 13 years old. I was like, Mom, we should do this. It sounds kind of cool. And she's like, yeah, Emily. Sure. She didn't think I was going to do it.
Captain of her dance team in high school, biking took a back seat in Mailman's life. But then she came to Indiana University and joined her sorority. That's when she found the Phi Mu bike team.
They came to one of our meetings and kind of talked about bike team, and me and one of my friends sounded interesting, so we were like, yeah, let's do it. Kind of didn't know what I was getting myself into, ended up really liking it.
Although she didn't race her freshman year, as she continued training that following summer, she also signed up for another Bike MS ride.
So it's kind of just a hodgepodge of people. No one was super close. We got up at 4 a.m., drove up there at 5. We were the only people that knew each other. Everyone else was on different teams. But then going through the ride, me and my coach stayed together for the majority of it, and he was kind of just talking about how this was my day.
Now as race day approaches, Mailman uses the memory of her dad to push her towards the finish line.
So I want to prove myself to my father and show him that all this work I put in is for something and kind of make him proud.
Wow, that's a really powerful story and one that proves that this is more than just a bike race or any other sporting event, Caitlin.
It's incredible the way you prepare a whole year for this event and you end up becoming really close with your team. It is a lot more than a bike race for everyone that's participating because these women are learning how to lead, how to motivate. They also get to go out there, be really brave, be competitive, and there's more than just on the track. These women are going out and riding all over the hills of Monroe County.
Lots of strong women, certainly a lot to admire in this race, and certainly there's a lot of trust involved in Little 500 from team to team. We sat down with the entire Phi Mu team to talk about their level of trust with each other. It's pretty high.
So you have this team within, and it's such a smaller, tight-knit group of people, and you're working towards this incredible goal that like, yes, you live with 100 people, but these are the people you spend like 25 plus hours a week, and the people who know how to motivate you, they know how to tick you off, they know like what's going on in your life on all different levels, and it's like a completely different relationship that I feel like is hard to find in college and a sorority and a club, and this is like one of the few places you get that like deep, like everything.
Kind of like, this is unrelated to the actual question, but something that she told me the other day is she was like, I trust you to throw a bike at me, and that's not something that you can say with every person, you know?
Yeah.
Like, when we're literally doing exchanges, like, that's how much trust we have in each other.
Caitlin, I think we get along. I don't trust you to throw a bike at me, and you certainly shouldn't trust me to throw a bike at you, but certainly there's a lot of trust involved in Little 500, and particularly when they mean throwing a bike, not heaving it, but exchanges.
Yeah, exchanges are one of the scariest things to learn. It's really, I was particularly bad at it as a rookie, and it takes a long time to get the feel of it, and because when you're doing an exchange, you're throwing your hands out there and you're just trusting your teammate to put the bike in your hands, and that does take a long time to build up that trust and a lot of practice.
And how badly can one botched exchange really affect a race, particularly as we get into laps maybe 50 and 75 on?
Yeah, so if it happens in the middle of the race, teams could probably quickly catch up, but when they usually end up getting botched is till the end of the race, when the speed's really hot, and that's when people get nervous and they know the race is on the line, and then it can actually really affect who's going to win.
Someone who is always clutch with the race on the line is Casey Dukes of Delta Gamma. She's standing by with our very own Courtney Robb. Courtney?
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Casey Dukes, two-time DG champion. Casey, how does it feel to be back today?
It feels amazing. It's so great, to see how the race has evolved, but, the traditions are still there and still evident. And, it's so great to be, around all the alum that I rode with, a couple of years back. And, yeah, it's great. It's great to see the race just, continue to go on.
Speaking of alum, I heard you're staying with some this weekend. Have you guys gotten to any antics, or how's that been?
Yeah, we actually have one big house, so there's 12 of us all staying in one house. So it's a great time. It's great to catch up. We're all across the country now, so to be in the same place for the best time of the year and our favorite event is just really special.
Now, what are the emotions like standing behind the fence this year and watching your team?
Yeah, it's it's a different experience, but it's great to it's no longer our race, it's theirs, and they've trained so hard and they're ready, and we have two riders returning from last year's race, and we're experienced, and it's great to cheer them on from behind the fence.
All right, well, sounds good. Thanks, Casey.
Yeah, thank you.
Back to you guys.
Special thanks to Casey Dukes. Good stuff there. And you told me earlier she was the right kind of fierce, or the best kind of fierce.
She is. She was an incredible sprinter. She won both of her races, her junior and senior year, in a really incredible fashion.
So just a few moments away from the invocation, but as we inch closer and closer to the actual race, see Delta Gamma in full serious mode there. What are your predictions, Caitlin?
I really think it's going to be Theta defending their title. They are 4 deep, 3 riders in the top 10 for ITTs, and most importantly, they have Rachel Brown and Sydney Keaton, who are returning riders and know what it's like to win the race. But there's going to be a lot of teams in the mix.
And we talked about some teams surrounding them. Delta Gamma in the pole position for the second straight year. AGD qualifying third. And how early do you think Melanzana, if they do, will get themselves back into the mix in this race?
I don't know. It's going to depend on how quickly they serve that penalty. They need to serve it in the first 20 laps. I don't think they're going to try to serve it in the first 10 because the first 10 are the fastest, but I'm not sure what they're going to do.
Yeah, the Dixie Highway Award goes to the team that improves the most from their qual position to the end of the race position. Melanzana, if they want to win the race, may also have to win that award. So what other teams are we looking at beyond the ones we focused on here through the preview show?
Yeah, I would be remiss if I left out my team. Teeter was the team I rode for. They have 3 riders in the top 25, so they're definitely a dark horse team, but they could be up there for a top 5 finish.
Yeah, Teeter, who's finished first 3 times, 2 of them you were on the bike for. I know we were talking about before the race right now. Teams, there's got to be some jitters, some nerves, even for the experienced teams. But what is going through your head right now is you're just moments away from the pomp, the circumstance, and then, oh yeah, the race.
Yeah, this day, you're so nervous, you're so excited. And I think it's this feeling of like you almost can't believe it's here right now.
Yeah, and entire years of work leading up to just this one day. Can you put that in perspective? I think, you know, every other sport you get a full season's worth. Basketball, 30 to 40 games at the college level. College football, even 12 games. Soccer, 30, 40 games. These athletes work just as hard, if not harder. They got one day to make their mark on the sport.
It really is this one day that counts. There are series events. I actually talked to Rachel Brown from Theta about this, and she had some great success in the spring series. And she says, you know, it's really fun to win those, but the race, that's really what matters.
Some of the best individual riders we've ever seen. Both Brooke Hannon and Rachel Brown were able to break the previous ITT record. So technically, it's just Brooke Hannon that holds it, but two girls breaking the record. This is a really special field.
It is, and we also know that Rachel Brown has some sprinting power. She won missing out, so even if it comes down to a field sprint, I think it could be really interesting.
And we'll touch on this throughout the race, but there's so much turnover year to year in the races. But it's so special that Kappa Alpha Theta has made it could make it 4 out of 5. That sustained success is difficult to do. You're watching the live broadcast of the 2018 Women's Little 500 coming to you from Bill Armstrong Stadium, presented by Subaru of America and Royal Subaru. I'm David Sugarman, alongside former Teeter rider Caitlin Van Kooten. We have Courtney Robb down on the pit. So happy you could join us today. Gorgeous conditions for race day. A little bit of wind, but certainly better compared to the rain we saw last year on the track. It only caused one big crash, but certainly this is a step up.
Yeah, I think this is exactly the weather you want. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. The riders are going to be able to compete full out.
Certainly, and so now we're going to throw it down to Courtney Robb, who's down on the pit. Court?
Thanks, guys. I actually ran into Mac Rogers, whose father, Randy Rogers, used to run the IU Student Foundation himself. And not to mention, Mac has his sister, who is a former 2-time Theta champion. And I asked today, hey, are they rooting for Theta? He said yes. It's a great day, and they're really looking forward to it. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Courtney. So, Caitlin, we talked a lot about the top contenders, the names that people know, but there are a few other teams that might sneak up on some people this year that aren't always in the mix.
Ski they are on the back stretch, so you're not going to see them all the time on the front stretch when other teams are exchanging, but they have a top 10 rider in Ivy Moore. She was 9th in ITTs. And they have a really impressive coach, Jim Kirkham, who's coached the Cutters through many, many wins.
And how about Theta Phi Alpha? This is a team that qualified 26th last year. This year, they qualified 7th. The big changing variable is their new coach, Courtney Bishop, who also coaches Jet Black, formerly Delta Tau Delta.
I would not be surprised if we see Theta Phi stick around till near the end. They have a top 3 ITT rider in Caitlin. And
Caitlin Camplain.
Caitlin Camplain, thank you. And she could have the strength to really keep them in it. We'll just have to see how their other 3 riders are able to hang with the pace of the field.
And you certainly love the confidence that TPA and Courtney Bishop shows. It was his first time coaching a women's team, but he said, I do not coach teams. I do not expect to win. Now we're going to throw it down for the pump, the circumstance, and the invocation.
Associates member. Reed Frond, a member of the 1998 Steering Committee, and Dan King Thomason, president of the 1956 Steering Committee. Let us pause for a moment of silence. Eternal and ever-loving Father, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to gather for this competition. We ask you to continue to bless us with this dry and favorable weather today. We thank you for the blessing of these riders with their athleticism, discipline, and drive. We know that all these gifts come from you. We thank you as well for all the hard work that has gone into planning and preparing for this event. Almighty God, you have created all humanities to strive for excellence. Please send your blessings upon these athletes today. May they compete in a spirit of joy and respect. Please keep them safe from all injury and any other harms. Please bless all of us who watch today's competition and to celebrate on this day. May we celebrate in joy, safety, and prudence. And may we come to know better the wonders of your love and majesty through the experience of this joyous day. We ask all this in your most holy name. Amen.
Presenting our colors today, the Pershing Rifles Color Guard from Indiana University Army ROTC. IU's Pershing Rifles is a competitive drill and honor squad which consistently receives high scores in competition around our country. The Pershing Rifles with our colors. Watch skyward for parachutes from Skydive Indianapolis, carrying the American flag and other flags. Please join our riders and coaches in celebrating America's freedom, those who now protect it, and those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, we present now from the Jacobs School of Music, its great choral ensemble, the Singing Hoosiers. Please remove your caps and stand as the Singing Hoosiers perform our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land, o'er the land, o'er the land of the free, and the home of the brave.
With the 32 teams now on the course, we get ready for racing. We introduce Indiana University's men's a cappella group, Another Round, with Back Home Again in Indiana.
Do 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 do. again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon haze sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon haze sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
Another round, ladies and gentlemen.
Back home again in Indiana, another great race day tradition. And boy, this is a beautiful spectacle to watch. Is it difficult on the bike right now to stay focused, or do you like to soak it all in and soak up these little moments?
Everyone's different. I know my heart always soared when you see the balloons go up because you know you're right there. It's about to start. It's such a fun moment. And those songs, they sing the same songs every year. I couldn't imagine it otherwise.
It's all a fun, it's all a spectacle as we await the Grand Marshal. It is women's basketball player Tyra Buss, the Hoosiers' all-time leading scorer, helped lead Indiana to a WNIT championship this year. Let's let her take it away from the mic.
Ride smart. Keep your head up. Good luck and Godspeed. Now, the words we've been waiting to hear. Ladies, mount your little 500 bicycles.
And so we get ready now for racing. We'll have 3 laps before the green flag, 2 slow warm-up laps, and 1 faster pace lap.
Tyra
Pacing
Buss
the starting field for this
words, and the little 500 riders get on and get ready for their pace laps. And here we go, just moments away from the race. Any final thoughts before we really get going with the fun, Caitlin?
This is the moment when they're completely focused on what's going to happen when they pass that green flag. They're so geared up and ready to go. It's almost hard to ride that slow and hold your formation.
And you talked about holding your formation. That is what Melanzana did not do in the practice race, which is why they're going to have to serve that 20-second penalty. They finished 6th a year ago, and this is a very confident group that really, obviously they're not happy where they qualified, they're not happy with the penalty, but they're not making any bones about it. They still think they're going to be up there on race day, on the podium. We're going to take you through the rows. DG, Kappa Alpha Theta, and Alpha Gamma Delta make up row 1. Those are 3 crowd favorites. Alpha Chi Omega in purple, Teeter, Caitlin's former team, in pink, and Phi Mu crawling 6th in blue. Row 3, Theta Phi Alpha, led by Courtney Bishop, Jet Black, formerly Delta Tau Delta coaching TPA for the first time. AO Pi, who finished 2nd a year ago, and AZD, who had the Dixie Highway Award last year for the best improvement on the end. Row 4 is made up of Ski, Ride On, and Independent Council. We get to row 5. It is Alpha Sigma Alpha, Delta Phi Epsilon, and Delta Sigma Pi. Heading into the second half of the field, 32 teams in the field this year, Chi Omega, Sigma Kappa, and Phi Gamma Nu. Just behind them is Crew, CSF Cycling, and a brand new team, all seniors, all rookies, Centripetal Force. They're going to be a fun group to watch out for this year. In row 8, Alpha Delta Pi, Melanzana, who we just alluded to, and Kappa Delta. 3 more rows to go. Gamma Phi Beta in row 9, DZ, and Kappa Kappa Gamma on the end of them. Now the riders headed into turn 2 of the second lap of the pace laps. Alpha Phi, IU Nursing, and Camp Kessam in row 10. And rounding things out, just 2 teams in row 11, 32 teams participating this year. Sigma Delta Tau and Alpha Epsilon Phi. And that is your field. We are just moments away from getting this thing going. Delta Gamma, the pole sitter for the second year in a row, looking for their 4th winner, their 4th Little 500 title. Last year, though, they finished in 3rd. DG in the green, Kappa Alpha Theta in the yellow. Normally, the team that wins Spring Series wears white, but they're the defending champions who normally wear yellow. Kind of a good situation to be in, wouldn't you say?
That is where you want to be. So they're going to go around one more time. The pace car is going to pull off in that back corner. And then the next time we see them, the race is going to be live.
Moments away from the green flag, a little bit of wind picking up now. Talked about that earlier, how the wind could have an effect, but all things being equal, this is very good race conditions. The sun is out and shining, and the track looks good today.
It really does. When they go across this line, we're looking to see the top 3 teams really set a fast pace. And they want to do that so that they can keep the race safe. If the race is started slow, that's when we tend to see crashes. But I think they're going to really work hard, make it fast for these first few laps, and start to string out the field.
And last year was a pretty quick race. The winner, Kappa Alpha Theta, at 1 hour, 9 minutes, and 49 seconds. That's a pretty quick time.
Yeah, it's hard to judge how fast a race is because it all depends on how many yellows there are. Last year, if I remember, there were very few yellows, and it was a fast race.
Coming around turn 3 into turn 4, 25.47 miles, 100 laps, 32 teams. Sit back and enjoy. It's going to be a fun one. And they're off, and they're already, you can see, going into that string formation, roping things out, whereas you see in the beginning, each team's in rows of 3. Why do they go to that string formation right away?
As soon you want to be in the draft of the woman in front of you so that you are able to conserve a little bit of your energy. And when it's strung out, that means we're going really fast.
Certainly strung out here on lap 1. Kappa Alpha Theta pulling just in front of DG right now, but through those first few laps and even through the first half of the race, we see a lot of turn taking.
Yeah, in the early part of the race, they're going to be cooperating to keep the field fast. The leaders what they want to do is they want to separate the leading pack from the rest of the field because it makes it safer for them.
AKIO in the purple out in front right now. Just behind them in the pink is Teeter.
There's a few other race day penalties too. We have Alpha Epsilon Phi needs to serve a 4-second penalty. Delta Sigma Pi needs to serve a 2-second penalty. Gamma Phi Beta needs to serve a 2-second penalty. And then, of course, as all the talk's been about, Melanzana needs to serve a 20-second penalty.
Yeah, we'll certainly keep an eye on when they choose to go into the penalty box. And now, Melanzana's penalty needs to be served through the first 20 laps. Keep that in mind as well. That's AZD who's pulling in front right now. They've got a short lead on the field, and now AKIO in purple coming around.
Oh, we have a wreck right after turn 1. Oh, look.
It's a number of teams, but all teams that seem to be towards the back of the pack. We have a few teams in the middle. Looks like Delta Phi Epsilon is in the mix. A couple of bikes tangled up right now. That's Gamma Phi Beta, as well as that might have been Delta Sigma Pi. We do have, looked like there was a rider hurt. We will try and get.
Let's go back. We've got Teeter, we've got Brooke trying to make a move. I think she's trying to make a big burn to get a little bit of a lead on the pack before she starts to serve that penalty.
So a crash within the first 3 laps of the race. It doesn't seem like it affected any of the leaders, though, that we thought so far. We're going to get a second look at that in just a minute.
We know Brooke was worried about getting up to the front, but you see her there right behind Teeter.
Yeah, take a look there and see some riders sprawled out on the ground, bikes tangled up. And we saw that in the men's race last year. There was a crash on lap 1. Now on lap 2, a crash in the women's race. Now into lap 4, AKO in front right now. Kappa Alpha Theta right on their wheel and now pulling out in front. Still obviously very early on in the race, but at what point does the race transition from teamwork in between teams to every rider and every team having to be selfish and looking out for themselves?
People might surprise us. A team could try to make a move earlier, but typically the moves happen around lap 80 to 90 is when people set up for the win, unless someone's really trying to make a bigger move and lap the field or win by a half lap.
You know, we saw Kappa Alpha Theta was neck and neck with AO Pi through the last 5 laps before really pulling away around lap 98, 99 in 2017 as CSF takes a turn in front.
They're probably going out for their very first burn. We see Ivy Moore from Ski just kind of grabbing on and coasting for it. The teams were riding a bit more slowly. You saw it got wide, and now we're strung back out again with that first CSF exchange setting it off.
Yeah, we take a look at it here. CSF making the exchange. It's a slow one, but certainly a clean one. And early in the race, that's all you're looking for on the exchanges, Caitlin, no?
Yeah, a clean exchange is everything.
We just got word on that last crash. Gamma Phi Beta has a broken bike. Gamma Phi Beta, who has their second bike in the race right now, they didn't really come in today as much of a contender, and that certainly will set them back. They finished 28th in last year's race and qualified 25th coming into this year. So Gamma Phi Beta, who is already behind the 8 ball, has lots of ground to make up if they want to make their way towards the middle of the pack. Gamma Phi Beta now in 32nd, last place up to this point in the race.
We're now already down to just 20 teams on the lead lap.
Ski taking a turn in front right now. TPA just behind them. Ski, you mentioned, led by Jim Kirkham, and one of those non-Greek teams that certainly has a lot riding on this one. A top 5 finish in last year's race.
Is this Brooke making her move to serve the penalty? This certainly looks like she's putting a big effort in.
Brooke Hannon, the best individual rider in this race, first in ITTs, breaking Kristen Hewitt's record back in 2009. Hewitt, who rode for Wing It.
The field is not having this. They know exactly what she's trying to do, and they want to try to stick with her as much as possible.
Here she comes, and now she's going to sit in the penalty box. She'll have to do, this will be 20 seconds total. Let's see if they serve it all right now. And you can see Hannon in there on the penalty box. She's talking to the judge right now, and she wants to go as soon as this is over and make up this ground. This is a pivotal point early in the race, and she's off.
Wow, that looked faster than 20 seconds, but I can't imagine how long that must have felt to her. She is a little less than a half lap back, but she's geared up, ready to go.
So almost 10 laps in, we see Kappa Alpha Theta, defending champ of last year, in 7th place currently.
That lap that Brooke took, where everyone followed her pre the penalty, was the fastest lap at the race of just 35 seconds.
We see Ski still in the lead right now. They're up front with Kappa Alpha Theta still strung out. You see a pink jersey in front in second. That is Teeter. So a lot of the usual suspects in the mix, but Ski, who qualified just 10th, is in the top 3 right now. And though you got to take all the quals positions with a grain of salt this year, Caitlin. I mean, those were some of the worst quals conditions we have ever seen. The snow, the sleet, the rain, and it certainly affected a lot of race day positions.
Yeah, snow on quals is just unheard of, and it's hard to tell how consistent that was.
And
overall, quals is sort of hit or miss. A team could have a really good quals team, but not have the endurance or depth.
And just to put it in perspective, Delta Gamma finished first in quals. They were 18 seconds slower than the best quals position from last year, which was Kappa Alpha Theta. DG's pole position this year, 2:51 and change. So certainly it showed in the numbers, but Delta Gamma still falling first for the second year in a row.
So Brooke is still working to catch up. She's about 13 seconds. Oh, we have a wreck. We have a wreck in turn 4.
We have a wreck in turn 4. We see DG is involved and they need a new bike. And you see a couple other teams in the mix there. That is Phi Mu also in there. AZD, this is a crash that has taken now a couple of leaders. We'll see. And now Delta Gamma getting a new bike and getting a new rider on the bike. They're throwing Hannah Copens out there right now. Copens, who is 4th in ITT, is going to have to make up ground quickly here.
Wow, really stunning. It didn't go under yellow. We saw Theta escaped it. They are free to go.
So 2 crashes within the first 15 laps so far. The first one didn't affect an awful lot of leaders, but that one taking down Delta Gamma.
Yeah, look at this. The leaders are coming up around lap traffic already. Phi Mu going on the outside, Theta cutting on the inside. Right on their wheel, we have Ski. Ivy Moore looking very determined.
So Ski and Theta still in the mix. DG with quite a bit of ground to make up. DG is currently in 16th. They're down about a lap right now as we see the positions rapidly changing. Delta Gamma is behind about 22 seconds. Certainly a lot of race to go, but not the hope that the leaders were hoping for.
Right now, we're already only down to 8 teams on the lead lap. It looks like that team Theta Phi we were talking about, they're sitting on the front.
TPA, who qualified 26th a year ago, qualified 7th this year. They're coming off their best ever finish, and boy, he won't be on the bikes, but the difference a coach can make. Courtney Bishop, who used to coach Delta, now Jet Black. TPA moved into Delta House and is living there now and took on Courtney Bishop as a coach, and the change has been apparent. They're a contender this year after really never being one.
Yeah, that wreck certainly helped Melanzana. No one wishes for a wreck, but Melanzana, they are now just about 7 seconds back.
Yep, Melanzana, who would have to make up that ground, maybe get a little bit lucky to do it. 2 crashes within the first 15 laps will do that. So Melanzana, between 2 crashes and having all the speed they do on the bike, namely Brooke Hannon, well, now they're going to have a great opportunity to make up ground here. Theta Phi Alpha still doing a very good job right now. We talked about that improvement. We've got a story on that coming up on your screen now.
Courtney Bishop approached the women about coaching and since has brought the Theta Phi Alpha girls from 26th last year to 7th this year at Quals.
We never had a coach before, and it's nice to have somebody who tells you exactly what you should be doing to prepare and when you should be doing it.
Bishop is most known for coaching Delta Tau Delta to victory in 2016, and since the frat's departure from campus, he has been coaching Jet Black. Although Bishop has only experienced coaching men, he says the training styles aren't too different.
Delts and Major Taylor and Jet Black have always had like a very intense like training program that's very regimented, along with a very crazy intense weight training program. And I started initially kind of designing the girls. I said, how am I going to make adjustments for the girls? And then, it kind of hit me that why make adjustments at all?
Before, we didn't really have a training program. We had very limited equipment, no practice space, anything like that. So he's given us basically all that.
Just generally having Courtney as a coach has been a really big asset to our team, and it's made all the difference in the world for us.
Thanks to Coach Bishop, Theta Phi Alpha has a chance to win this year's Little 500.
Basically, I've been training them to ride 200 laps all year long, and the race is only 100 laps, so hopefully we won't get tired.
Certainly imagine stamina won't be an issue for TPA if that was the training regimen that they went with. As we welcome you back to the broadcast booth, David Sugarman alongside Caitlin Van Kooten, Courtney Robb on the pit. We'd like to remind you, you're watching the live broadcast of the 2018 Women's Little 500 presented by Subaru of America and Royal Subaru, as we see Kappa Alpha Theta getting ready for that first exchange, Caitlin. Excuse me, a TPA getting ready for that first exchange.
We also see Theta looks like they're coming in for an exchange.
Theta making their first exchange, hopping onto the bike right now. That's Laura Watanabe. She was 11th in ITT. She's in her first race today, and just looking at the depth on Kappa Alpha Theta, they have all 4 of their riders in the top 15 in ITTs, and they have a short lead right now.
We have to talk about Melanzana. They made it back in just 10 laps. If teams were counting Melanzana out because of that 20-second penalty, they cannot do that anymore. They are going to be there at the end.
No, there was so much discussion if the 20 seconds was going to be too much to do it. And so how much of their big comeback early on in this race, just about a fifth of the way through, has to do with their talent, and how much does it have to do with 2 early crashes, including one that involves leaders like Delta Gamma?
It's about 50-50. They did get really lucky with the timing of when the field slowed up because of that crash, but Brooke also really set herself up for that penalty and was clearly riding very fast.
They already have that penalty out of the way as well, so from here it is a clean slate for Melanzana, Brooke Hannon, and company. We are a fifth of the way through the race, 20 laps into this one. Not every team has made their first exchange this yet, but when do teams begin to settle into the race, and at what point do you think teams cycle through all of their riders normally, Kate?
Around 20 laps, I would expect to see almost every team make their first exchange. It's going to be till about lap 30 to 40 where everyone's made sort of a full rotation. So we see the leaders on our screen, but also behind them, DG is starting to make a comeback. They were at one point a half lap. You just see them come in the back of that turn, and they have the lead of the pack in their sights with just an 8-second differential to the front.
And how about Ride-On and Alpha Sigma Alpha? Ride-On qualified 11th and has never finished better than 9th. And Alpha Sigma Alpha, who qualified just 13th, they're 1 and 2 right now. Not the people who we were really expecting.
Fantastic. It's great to see new teams make it up to the front, and I'm sure teams that are really looking for that top 3 spot are more than happy to let someone else take the lead for a bit.
Right now, it's just as we mentioned, that Alpha Gamma Delta in front, and followed by Alpha Chi Omega. Just over a fifth of the way into this race. Certainly an awful lot of intrigue already. Melanzana making up for their earlier penalty in the practice race. ASA and Ride On making their presence known, and a couple of crashes. So it has been an exciting and certainly an unexpected start to the race.
We see DG was one of our leading teams that got caught up in that wreck, and we see their rider just sort of resting in the back of that lead pack.
We just alluded to Melanzana in their furious comeback through the first 23 laps of the race. Courtney Robb is standing by with the Melanzana student coach. Court?
Thanks, guys. I'm here with student coach Reagan Brakel. Reagan, you saw that crash go down, and obviously you don't want to see that, but it definitely helped your little team a bit. What have you seen from that so far? You know, like I said, Brooke just really did her job. She avoided it, and thankfully there wasn't a yellow, so that means all the other riders are safe and we can continue on. But she did what she needed to do. She sprinted up, tried to improve before if there was a yellow potentially, but like I said, thankfully there wasn't, so everybody's safe.
Coming off of that 20-second penalty, you guys have moved up very quickly. Is this the direction you guys really want to go in today?
Yeah, you know, again, Brooke just did her job with that too. We tried to serve it early, and she worked her butt off, you know, came out super tired, but she's going to recuperate, and now we're back in the race, and that's all we wanted.
All right, thanks so much. Good luck.
Thank you.
Back to you guys.
Thank you, Courtney. So we heard her mention there about the yellow flag. It didn't come out. Were you surprised that the yellow flag didn't come out, which obviously would have hindered Melanzana's comeback here through the first quarter of the race?
I was a little surprised. It looked like a big crash, but everyone popped up very quickly, which is good. That means no one was hurt.
We see Delta Gamma out in pit 1 getting ready to make their first exchange of the day. Alpha Gamma Delta getting ready to make an exchange as well. So teams 1 and 3 to start the day, both about to make their first exchange.
I don't know. I think we've actually seen them make a few exchanges. So much has happened in this first 20 laps. I really can't believe how exciting that was.
It seems like the race is certainly flying by. 25 laps in already into this one. A quarter of the race already away and in the books. 75 laps to go. Right now is the...
We have 11 teams on the lead lap, so it's come together a little bit. That first 20 laps, what a jittery experience, but people look like they're settling in and are ready to do that core heart rate work, try to rest, go through the paces.
We're looking at the leaders right now. We get a look at Ride On there in the orange. In the pink, we see Teeter. In the light blue, that's AZD. I mentioned AZD. They had their best qual in over 20 years. They qualified 9th. And last year, they came off their best ever finish, 7th in the race. So AZD, you know, they had nobody that finished in the top 25 in ITTs, Caitlin, but certainly a team to look out for as a possible dark horse.
They are riding like they're riders in contention, and you've got to love that spirit.
27 laps in, Kappa Alpha Theta in 9th right now. Theta mentioned the favorites looking to win their 4th race in the last 5 years. They have the most races out of anybody, race wins out of anybody in the women's field. 7 overall, looking to make it 8. And Caitlin, as somebody who's won back-to-back races, how difficult is that to do, to win it twice in a row?
The thing about being the returning champion is that everyone knows what you're setting out to do. So any move you make, people are going to follow a little bit more closely. No one loses track of that yellow jersey on the field. But on the other side, it gives you the confidence. You know what it feels like. You're dialed in and ready to go.
There's certainly a target on their back as we see Ride On getting ready to make an exchange out. They're right by 13 in turn 3 right now. We can take a look, and they are going to make their exchange. And that's a clean one, and someone making exchange right next to them. And that was Ski, and could have been bad, bumping into each other on the exchange. We saw that towards the end of the race last year, unintentional, but those precious seconds, if you bump into someone or get in the way on someone's exchange, can be costly.
Yeah, if you lose contact with the lap, you just have to work that much harder to get back. Great exchange from Phi Mu. They got right back up with the leaders there, which is what you want.
Just under 30 laps into this one, 29 of 100 are gone. Alpha Chi Omega is currently in front. Now Phi Mu taking their turn in front. As we see, there are still quite a few teams on this lead lap. Usually in the women's race, we're used to seeing it string out and sort of skinny out a little bit earlier on in the race.
You are. We've seen some lapses. Our last lap was about 43 seconds, which is not that fast. So people are settled in, and I think what's interesting is that you see the leaders, the people we expect to be on the last lap at the end, they're really content to sit in behind some teams. I think everyone's trying to rest and save their energy for the last 20 laps.
We know about the jitters and through the first 15 to 20 laps, and we know about the strategy and what needs to be done in the last 20 laps. But what is it like you said, riding and sitting in, getting comfortable in that in-between portion?
When you're sitting in, you have to make sure that you're really aware of what's going in the race. You want to keep pace, but you don't want to lose track of where you are in the race.
Now 31 laps gone in this one. In first place currently is Delta Gamma. Pulling in front of them just now is Ride On. And we see Teeter out in front as well. Excuse me, Theta Phi Alpha. Theta Phi Alpha, whose best finish ever was last year at 15th. Doing a good job this time around.
Wow, smoking Teeter exchange coming in ahead of the pack.
See Teeter with a smooth exchange right there. You mentioned she came in very, very fast. And Phi Mu, who's in the mix right now, called 6th coming into this one. And we've got a former Phi Mu and a former media student here on hand with us. Katie Kapusta is down by the pit with Courtney Robb. Courtney.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with former rider Katie Kapusta. Katie, how does it feel to be back today behind the gate?
I mean, I'm probably just as nervous, but it's nice not to have that pressure on your shoulders anymore and just be able to, give the girls your support and, your knowledge of what you've done in the past few races so that they can continue to succeed,
And we saw that crash earlier. For you as an alum, watching that happen, is that nerve-wracking?
Oh, 100%. I got in a big crash last year, and that took us completely out of the race. Lizzie, thankfully, was right in front of both of those two crashes that happened earlier. It is nerve-wracking because, especially from this vantage point, you can't completely see everything around the track, but you got to trust, you're in the right position at the right time.
Going through something like that, is there any advice you've been offering your team on how to proceed?
A little bit. I mean, you got to just get up on the bike if you possibly can. Last year, unfortunately, our bike was completely bent, so we couldn't. But if you can, the faster you get on the bike, the faster you can catch up back to the pack. If you don't catch the pack within a good amount of laps, then you're not going to have a chance. So you just have to get back up as soon as you can if you're not injured.
All right, thanks, Katie. Good luck. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Courtney, and perfect timing as Phi Mu gets ready for an exchange, nearly getting in the way of Delta Gamma. They were able to swerve out of the way of that one. You heard Katie talk about these sort of crash strategies, so do you agree? And what was your sort of crash strategy? You don't want to see it happen, but you have to be ready for it, Caitlin.
If a crash happens, your whole team needs to react immediately. Someone needs to run out and take the bike if your bike can't be ridden anymore. And that's just a moment that you have a lot of nerves, but you have to settle in and try to catch up as steadily and quickly as you can. So that last DG exchange was really interesting because she actually had to call it off. So we see that DG is now coming again to make that exchange. That's the second time they've been cut off by an AGD exchange. It looks like the teams are trying to coordinate their exchanges so that they're queuing off each other and they're not at risk of being left behind. But that could cause some problems later in the race if they hit cross wires.
So you believe that none of that is intentional, it's just bad timing or poor communication between the teams that they're both trying to exchange at maybe the exact same time?
Yeah, it's hard when you're in the field to try to see where the other teams are. The pits probably need to talk to each other a little bit more, see who's taking an outside line, who's taking an inside lane, but I think they're gonna work that out.
Pulling in front now, that's AZD. David Sugarman, Caitlin Van Kooten, Courtney Robb, so happy that you could join us here for the 30th running of the Women's Little 500 presented by Subaru of America and Royal Subaru. Great race day conditions, a little bit of wind. It's helped cause a couple of crashes here today, but now, like you said, Caitlin, the majority of the riders have settled in. We still see a few teams that maybe we weren't expecting to be in the mix that are in the top 10. Independent Council is in 6th place. You just saw that flash across the screen. When do you think that the teams that are maybe out of their depth a little bit normally get weeded out of the field, unless they're going to be a bit of a Cinderella story?
It's going to depend. Right now we see Ride On. They were leading the field for a while, but they're near the back. I think the thing sometimes people get up the front and they continuously pull, but you really need to make sure that you're not pulling the whole race, because sometimes those young and excited teams can expend too much energy and then they're not able to keep up later.
How difficult is it to keep your emotions in check? Even if you're only in first for a moment, you're in first.
It's really hard, especially if you're a rookie, to be on the front of the race and just not give it your all. But a lot of this race is about managing your energy at the right level, at the right time.
You just saw Independent Council think about an exchange and then think better of it. Top 5 up to this point: Alpha Chi Omega, Ski, Melanzana, Teeter, and Phi Mu. So other than Melanzana, all 4 of those teams we expected to be in the mix today.
Yeah, it's like that 20-second penalty never happened. You cannot count out Melanzana.
And Melanzana, who of course has Brooke Hannon, who has done a lot of the grunt work and made up for that error in the practice race. Of course, Hannon, one of the more experienced riders in this race, but there's also quite a few rookies in the race. For more on how the rookies train, let's take a look.
When winter comes, riders have a hard time practicing outside. However, they have another option at the SRSC by participating in the Little 500 cycling session.
There's a need for indoor workout options when we're in the winter months and dealing with the shorter days and the colder weather. So we wanted to offer a session to Little Fivers.
The Little 500 cycling session has been around for 12 years, and Ronnie Cox has been there from the start. The session starts in October and lasts till March, giving teams the ability to practice during the colder months.
That we really focus on high cadence riding, which is critical for Little 5 since the bikes only have 1 gear, and we focus a lot on that through the class.
High cadence riding is great for Little 500 riders since it keeps fatigue at bay and trains the rider's neuromuscular system.
The team tries to come here once a week on Tuesdays. We found it really good for rookies, like just getting into it, but like it's also a really nice way to break up winter activities, or else we're just inside doing rollers all day.
Not all teams have bike rooms, rollers, or can go on biking trips during the winter. This is a great way for riders to get some similar riding practice.
Yeah, if you don't have a place to ride indoors, if you don't have bikes, this is a place to get a good workout and to learn workouts that you can recreate on your own.
We constantly get feedback back at the very end, saying that it's helped people improve, and whether they end up doing better than they thought, or they just were able to get out there doing something that they didn't know that they could. We've definitely seen improvements, which is awesome.
The cost of the class is $5 and is on Tuesdays and Thursdays till March 1st.
Guys, one of those teams that took that Little 5 cycling class was Centripetal Force. They're a first-year team, qualified 21st this year, actually right above Melanzana. And they're not the strongest team on the field, but that hasn't stopped them. They're 3 physics majors and 1 history major. Their name, a science name. Centripetal Force basically means the force that keeps a wheel object in motion. And guys, I think it's fair to say after what's happening at this race today, nothing's predictable, so don't count out Centripetal Force. Back to you guys.
Something strange is happening right now. It looks like Teeter somehow found themselves a little off the front, probably from a really fantastic burn, but now they're just pedaling slowly, waiting for the field to catch up. Their last lap was 53 seconds, which is a very slow lap.
An unorthodox move in what's been an unorthodox race up to this point, Caitlin.
It's really incredible to see this many teams on the lead lap for the women's race, and especially some teams that we weren't expecting to see there. So really kudos to teams like Ride On and AZD.
Ride On, AZD, both in the mix. We just talked about Centripetal Force, and kudos to them, a group of all seniors who just wanted to field a team. Certainly smart off of the track. Three of those girls in the pre-med fraternity and another a history major. So good luck to them today as we see Kappa Alpha Theta getting ready for another exchange.
Yeah, they've really woken up what was a sleepy field out there.
Laura Watanabe getting ready to get on the bike next, and she's actually going to fall just off of it. Not the cleanest exchange in the world, but Theta able to recover.
Ooh, that took her a bit longer to get back up. She's gonna close that ground, but they are about a quarter lap back.
Kappa Alpha Theta was in second prior to that last exchange. AGZ in first, Ski third, Teeter fourth, Melanzana in fifth. So 5 teams we were all looking at coming into race day, and Melanzana was able to make that ground up extremely quickly. They qualified 23rd. They then had the tough race day, practice race penalty. So you fought both FIMU, AZD, and AKO all making exchanges at the same time, and all of it ended up being pretty smooth, maybe surprisingly so. We talked about the teams trying to communicate their exchanges. Didn't look like it happened there, but everyone was able to stay on the bike.
Yeah, we were talking about Theta had a bit of a false start on that exchange. She's made contact with the back of the field, but things are heating up in the front with Delta Gamma. They're set to make an exchange.
DG in front, getting ready for a burnout.
Ooh.
Coming off the bike is Lori Bignell. Coming onto the bike is Hannah Kopitz.
We see Ivy Moore. She's just off the front of the screen, but she followed that Delta Gamma ride out, and now she's probably going out for her own exchange.
Can you talk about the strategy of getting on somebody's back wheel and as they're trying to burn out and make an exchange, Caitlin?
For an exchange, you want to try to do a burnout, which means you are getting a gap between you and the field. That helps it, so when you exchange, the rider that's coming into the race should ideally be able to slot right into the pack instead of having to chase. If you follow someone else's burnout, it's a free ride. It takes a lot less work to follow someone else's burnout than create it for yourself. We see Ride On is off the front.
Ride On, a team that qualified 11th. They've never finished better than 9th. That was last year in the neon orange. You can't miss them. They're about a little less than a straightaway of a lead right now, and they get ready to make an exchange, and they do. That's a really clean looking one.
That's amazing work for that team. That's the ideal exchange, is you want your rider coming in to almost wait for the pack.
On the bike right now, that's Mary Vanco, a junior who's in her first race. This is a partly experienced group. 2 of their riders, it's their second race. 2 of their riders, it's their first, as we see Teeter make another exchange.
Yeah, it looks like we have Katie Neeson in for Teeter.
Neeson, who was 15th in ITTs and 6th in Missing Out. It's just her first race, but a very talented rider. And we talked about this as we were getting ready for the race. There are a lot of talented riders who are riding for the first time as seniors in this race, Caitlin.
Yeah, it's interesting to see so many senior rookies. Some of them may have trained with the team prior to this year, and this is just their first year being selected for the Final Four. But that's great to see people get into it even at their senior year.
Almost halfway through this one, and we're going to check back in with the pits with Courtney Robb. What do you have for us, Courtney?
Thanks, guys. I'm here with AGD alum Megan Ertz. Megan, what have you seen from your team so far today?
We've seen a lot of good efforts out there. Our team's definitely showing up today. We got in a wreck early on, but we recovered really well, and we're back in the lead pack, so we're hoping to see us pull through in the end, and we'll see what happens.
You mentioned that wreck and coming back in the lead of a pack. What was the strategy there into really picking up and getting back in the race?
So when we went down, we were on the very front, so we had an advantage there, and we knew we just had to grind it out. We threw in our best rider, just catch up to the pack, and she tucked her head down and didn't let up until she made it back with the group.
Is that really what you want to see from an experienced rider?
Yeah, I mean, we handled it really well. Obviously, you never want to see your team go down, but I don't think we could have executed that recovery any more smoothly.
All right, thanks so much. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Courtney. And we see AGD still on that lead pack, third place right now as we are 50 laps through this one. Reminder that you're watching the live broadcast of the 2018 Women's Little 500 presented by Subaru of America and Royal Subaru. We thank you so much for joining us today from Bill Armstrong Stadium. David Sugarman, Caitlin Van Kooten, Courtney Robb, who we just checked in with down in the pits. Caitlin, now halfway through this race, certainly been a lot of excitement. What are your thoughts up to this point?
Incredible that there's so many teams on the lead lap. I think some teams are probably thinking, how is it going to shake out? Where are we going to start losing teams? But this might end up being a really big field sprint.
And we discussed it in the pre-show. Alpha Gamma Delta, who just pulled in front, just a tiny bit in front of Ride On. This is a team that finished 12th last year, but had a couple of individual riders that made huge leaps. Erin Adair went 33rd in ITTs last year. She was in the top 10. And how about Alyssa Todd, a sophomore who was on nobody's radar last year, 74th in ITTs, again, also in the top 10 this year. Just a testament to all the hard work, and they're really going to be flirting with the checkered flag when it's all said and done.
So exciting to watch what they're doing. Little Five, it's not that you have great riders come to Little Five. A lot of times great riders are made through Little Five, and AGD is really showing us what a full year of training does for a team.
It's certainly a high character team, and they certainly are close. When they went on that trip to Florida over winter break, they brought their entire team, not just the race day riders. So there was 8 girls in one Airbnb room for the week, all coming back from like 100-mile rides each and every day. So this is certainly a team with a lot of camaraderie and a lot of talent. They're in third right now, just behind Ride On. That's in an AZT, who's now Ride On pulls in front of them. 53 laps in.
Ride On, incredible pulling so much of this race. I really hope that they're able to stick with it at the end, and all this pulling in the lead isn't going to tank them after lap 70. What spirit they're showing.
Ride On, who's done nothing but improve since 2014. This is a team that was 23rd in 2014, 19th the year after that. But since then, they've made it to the top half of the field, 16th, and then last year, their best ever finish, 9th.
It's interesting to watch the track right now. It looks strung out, but the laps are actually quite slow. We're around 44 to 45. People aren't sure what's going to happen. I think they're trying to rest. They're waiting for other teams to make the move. Is this the second or third lap for Ride On to be pulling? That might be why this is moving slow, and the leaders are just really content to sit there in the back and wait.
And we see in front right now, looks like they're going for a burnout, is Alpha Chi Omega coming around turn 3 and leading into turn 4. Burning out, and they are absolutely getting ready for an exchange. Alpha Chi Omega in pit 5, here it comes. She comes speeding in, and there's an exchange between Jackie Mooney gets off the bike, Caitlin Paris gets on. The sophomore in her first race, coming on here in lap 55. Last year, the winner was at 1 hour, 9 minutes and change. That was Kappa Alpha Theta, and a little over halfway through this race, we're at just shy of 40 minutes.
We have 13 teams on the lead lap still. Huge number for this part of the race. It's shaping up to look more like a men's race.
Do you expect that number to get an awful lot lower as we get later into the race, or do you think at this point that it may be double-digit teams on the lead lap through the last 10 to 15?
Ooh, I'd be surprised to see double-digit teams on the last lap, but who knows? Someone has to make a move. I think one of these teams is at some point going to start making some moves to increase the race, but they've got to be willing to take pulls at the front. They can't be content with sitting behind the field if they're going to split up the race.
And to put things in perspective, how many teams at this point in the race are normally on the lead lap?
Normally at this point in the race, you might have 6, maybe 8 teams on the lead lap. Some years we're already down to 5 or fewer teams by this time of the race.
So normally at times the women's race can be a little bit top heavy, but that has not been the case, this year.
Wow, and we have some real contention teams sitting far back in the pack. Normally if you're going for the race win, you want to ideally be between 3rd and 4th position at worst, and certainly not that far back.
You see Theta making a move right now, and the lead pack starting to string out a little bit more. Theta getting ready for an exchange here. And actually, they're going to let Teeter make that exchange first. We talked about the communication. They're going to go ahead and keep Watanabe on the bike, and Teeter is going to make an exchange right now. It's Chase Wisheimer coming onto the bike.
Guys, this was the move. We saw Theta and DG set up like they were doing exchanges. Theta waved it off. They kept going. DG is with them. The two of them are off the front. You see the field is just blown apart. There's huge gaps between the riders.
See there, DG right on the back wheel of Kappa Alpha Theta. They were 1 and 2 coming into the day. Now Theta getting set for an exchange, as is DG.
Now we have to see, are they going to keep going, try to keep the field in chaos, or are they going to slot in? It looks like DG is sort of slotting in behind Ski. They're the lead lap. We see Ride On off the front, making an exchange. You know, that's the kind of move that could have blown up a team like Ride On, but Ride On hung tough. They're going to be right there with the leaders.
Credit to Ride On, 3 seniors on that team. 2 of them are participating in their second race, and they've hung tough with the leaders today. We're almost 60 laps into this one, and Ride On in the orange jersey and orange helmet has made a big time impact. As you see, you mentioned Kappa Alpha Theta and DG sort of just content to slide in right now and sit in the middle of that lead lap pack.
We should talk about Theta Phi real quickly. They were a team that we thought might be in contention, and I'm not sure what happened, but at one point we saw them as much as a half lap back. They're right now sitting at the end of that pack, and maybe they're going to be there for the end still.
TPA, who called 7th, certainly has not performed the way they were hoping up to this point. We are about 60% of the way through this race. And we'd like to remind you, you're watching the Women's Little 500 live broadcast presented by Subaru of America and Royal Subaru. 43 minutes, 43 seconds. We just announced over the PA that Phi Mu is in front currently. Phi Mu, who's never finished better than 3rd. That was in 1997, finished 11th a year ago. So I talked a lot about Kappa Alpha Theta and Delta Gamma. There are quite a few teams that have never won it that are in the mix here.
So we have 14 teams on the lead lap. To put it in perspective, that's almost half of the field.
See Kappa Alpha Theta and Delta Gamma still in the middle of the lead pack on the lead lap right now. Ride On still poking their wheels out in front, as we now for the 2nd year in a row, coming up and joining us in the booth in momentarily is going to be Kappa Alpha Theta. And now we saw a couple crashes early on in this race. For a little bit more about rider safety, let's learn.
Bill Armstrong Stadium has come back to life, full of this year's Little 500 competitors. But with the opening of the track, safety becomes a top priority for all riders. Brooke Hannon is a member of the Riders' Council Safety Committee, whose job it is to plan Rookie Week, a crucial time to instill safe track habits into new riders.
What are the most fundamental things that people who do Little 500 need to learn? And that's safely exchanging as well as safely riding.
The riders' wheels get within inches of each other, meaning wrecks can happen easily if a rider lets their guard down even for a second. The Little 500 track is made up of cinders, which have a rocky and sandy type consistency. And one wreck on this cinder track will leave you using one of these to get the cinders out of your scrapes. Student EMTs are standing by at all times, rain or shine, to address everything from small cinder scrapes to cracked helmets.
When people exchange, when one of them, the one jumping on, like misses and stumbles a little bit and scrapes their knee, but any cracked helmet, or if somebody isn't like totally with it, we'll call an ambulance.
And one simple element that can make or break dangerous situations on the track.
So I think communication is one of the top most important things for being safe in the Little 500.
And with communication and a little bit of luck, we can expect a safe Little 500 race this year. For IU Sports Media, I'm Anna Darling.
Thank you, Anna, who's actually riding today for ASA. And for the second year in a row, we are honored to be joined by former Kappa Alpha Theta rider, helped found the women's race as we know it today, Martha Gillum. Martha, thanks for coming up and spending a few laps with us.
Nice to see you, David.
So over 60 laps into this one, Theta is on the lead lap right now. There were a couple of wrecks early on. What are your thoughts up to this point?
Well, I'll have to tell you, I'm glad to see the weather is cooperating.
Yes.
And that's not a gimme, and I think we have a great day for a race. And I have to hand it to all the women and how prepared they look out there on the track. They look like they're in excellent shape, and not only DG and Theta, but I think a lot of teams look like they're in contention today.
Theta looking to defend their title, win the race for the 4th time in the last 5 years. They are looking to win the race for the 8th time overall. In a race in a sport that has so much turnover, people going abroad, people graduating, it is college. How does Theta, year in and year out, always become a contender?
Well, I mean, I think you have to look what makes any team a contender, and I think that applies to Theta recently. Number one, you have to have motivated girls that feel strongly about competing in the Little 500 because you have to make a lot of sacrifices in order to be in shape for race day. The second crucial part is to have a good coach and a coach that you believe in. And I think Theta this year with Ryan Knapp and in the past few years, they really have a wonderful coach. When I was with Theta, we had a wonderful coach that was really the glue for our team, Tom Schwegler, and he's coaching number 16, the Coyotes, today. And so I think it's a two-prong winning combination, a motivated woman and a great coach.
Ryan Knapp, who actually also coaches Black Key Bulls, who won the race in the men's side last year, so he certainly has a lot of hardware in his closet. But you talked about strong, motivated women. You can go ahead and throw yourself into that category. You actually tried qualifying for the men's race before going ahead and creating the women's race.
Well, I have to respectfully correct you because we actually qualified for the men's race in 1987. We had a successful third qualifying attempt, but we got bumped. And another thing that is kind of a fun detail is 2 other men's teams got bumped too that year.
So you were not the only ones left out of the pack.
We were not. So, I mean, we honestly were physically fit, and I think one of the reasons that we had some credibility to start the women's race the next year is that we were pretty good athletes, and I had the most to learn on the team, but all 4 of us were high school athletes. When we came down to IU, this was just a natural extension for us to find some sort of athletic pursuit. And one thing led to another. We were training for the series events, and then some of the guys we were riding with said, hey, why don't you sign up for the men's race in 1987? And we didn't realize it, but we walked into business room 219. You may know that room. It's a huge lecture hall. And we were the only women in the whole class. There were about 200 people interested in the men's race in 1987. So we were fish out of water, but we took on the challenge.
And now the women's race 31 years later, still going and going strong. Did you find much, if any, pushback as you tried to get the women's race off the ground, or when you were looking to participate in the men's race?
Yes, we did, but we also had a lot of support. Yes, we had a fair amount of men and women say, why are you doing this? It's the men's race. And to be fair, the men's race was going on for 30 years before we tried to join the men's race. And then the next year when we started the women's race, the men had to start sharing the track with us. And that meant cutting their track time in half. So I think it takes a while for people to embrace change, but even our sorority, after about a 2-hour contentious chapter meeting, didn't even give us the $50 entry fee. So at the time, we just pooled our resources and got the $50 ourselves. But the great news is within about a month or so, our house was behind us, and basically the whole campus was.
AKIO in front right now, just over 71 laps into this one. So that $50 went an awful long way 31 years later. I think it was worth the cash.
It was worth the cash, and it's a great story, too.
We're joined in the booth right now by Martha Gillum, helped found the women's race, used to ride for Kappa Alpha Theta, and as I understand it, I know you had your daughters here last year. Did they come up again to watch the race?
They're over to our left with my husband Brad, and they are 11 years old, wearing their IU gear. And I have a really cute story. One of my daughters came home after seeing the women's race 4 years ago. And I didn't even have to teach her how to ride a bike. She went into the garage, got the bike out, and started riding down the street on her own.
Wow, starting young.
So, yeah. So, and you're not a parent yet, but most parents break their backs trying to teach their kids how to ride a bike. So to have a kid go into a garage, it's because she was so inspired to, seeing all these girls out here riding in Little 500.
Well, I've learned so much in just this short time. I've learned how to be a better parent when the time comes. Learned a little bit about a history of the race. Martha, thanks so much for coming on. This event, it's all you. It's why it's happening. So, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. Always a pleasure, Martha. That was Martha Gillum, former Kappa Alpha Theta rider and one of the founders of the women's race. We thank Martha for coming on and helping us out on the broadcast for the second year in a row as Caitlin Van Kooten comes back on to join me now, nearly 3/4 of the way into this race. We're getting into the nitty-gritty, and that was a botched exchange there. There was AZD.
Sorry, Alpha Omicron Pi botched the exchange. So we had a bit of excitement while Martha was talking. We're not sure how it happened, but Alpha Chi Omega snuck off the front. At one point they had maybe a third of a lap on the field. The field's woken up and realized it. They're pulling them back in. But that is the danger of having so many teams on the lead lap, is people really can sneak off. You can't be in the field and mark 13 teams all at once.
So AKIO, who started in 4th and now is in the lead position on the lead lap, and we have a little bit more on Alpha Chi Omega.
Little 500 riders aren't born knowing the skills needed for race day. That's what Rookie Week is for.
It's kind of weird because you learn how to ride a bike all over again, it feels like, because riding a Little 5 bike on the Little 500 track is kind of different from any biking that you might have done before.
This year, Alpha Chi Omega welcomes 3 rookies to their mix, who got their first taste of the track this week.
Learned how to get off and jump on, and it was kind of scary and like kind of frustrating at first, but like once I got
and we're going to bring you out of that package. We have the yellow flag out right now. I believe there was an injury out in turn 3 right now. It was difficult to see who it was. We're going to get a second look at it right here.
Oh, that is AZD down. Bad luck.
That's a rider for AZD. Courtney has more on it. Court?
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm here right now. The AZD rider is getting put on the stretcher. She's breathing really hard, but the yellow flag is out, but
they're slow, but she looks like she's the only rider who was injured during that crash. The EMTs are tending to her right now, putting a brace on her, getting her all set up in the stretcher, so hopefully she's not in too much trouble. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Courtney. That was Abby Schaefer, a freshman who is down right now, still being tended to. We can only hope the best for Abby right now. All the medical staff doing a great job tending to her, and in the meantime getting back on how that affects the rest of the field right now with the yellow flag out. Everybody has to maintain their position, Caitlin, and that's difficult to ask of these teams this far deep into the race.
Yeah, your emotions are so high. It's so hard to ride slow. Looks like we have Alpha Omicron Pi. They're off the front. And then we have Ski right behind them. DG and Theta, and it looks like Teeter a little bit behind them, were heating things up. But then we had that yellow, and now they are just holding. And we are at 77 laps. It is, oh man, we're almost to 20 laps to go, and this is where all the fireworks are going to come out, but it's so stressful to go into that. You see the laps ticking away under yellow.
Right now in front, we see, getting a look at Alpha Chi Omega. They best finish ever was second place. Last year they finished in 4th. As Abby Schaefer went down for AZD out in turn 3, she's still being helped out by the medical staff right now. Nearly 80 laps into this one, the yellow flag still out. We get deeper and deeper into this one.
Yeah, so when it's yellow and it's near the end of the race, you need to just breathe slowly. Try to gather as much of your energy as you can, because as soon as this goes green, things are going to heat up extremely fast, and you have to be willing to sprint.
Still under yellow racing conditions right now. As you see, still out in turn 3. There's quite a bit of medical attention being given to Abby Schaefer of AZD, a freshman, a team that qualified 9th. It was their best qual in over 20 years. Seems like they're putting her actually on maybe a stretcher right now and helping her over to the medical tent. So she's getting all the help she needs, but now we have green flag conditions. So we are back at it here, nearly 80 laps in, 79 to be precise. So the AZD Abby Schaefer Fall gets a few laps of yellow flag conditions, but now we're right back at it, and now we see the teams right back into a sprint.
David, this is when we see that I'm not the professional you are. I'm just too excited. So we have Ski and AKO. They're third lap up. They have 9 seconds on the field. Theta and DG, if they want to be in this, they have to shut this down now. And you can see them moving up quickly.
About to be 80 laps in. You're watching the live broadcast of the 2018 Women's Little 500 presented by Subaru of America and Royal Subaru. I'm David Sugarman here with 2-time Little 500 champion, a Little 500 Hall of Famer, former theater rider Caitlin Van Kooten. We have Courtney Robb reporting from the pits. Over 80% of the race is in the books right now. We've had several crashes. We've had some yellow flag conditions. And right now, pulling out in front, we see Phi Mu, AGD neck and neck with them, and Alpha Gamma Delta will take a short lead. So 2 teams that have never won the race are both in contention right now, but a couple of the usual suspects as well, Kappa Alpha Theta and Delta Gamma in the mix. Teeter just off their tail.
Interesting. AKO was trying to pull off. Ski said, no, I'm not going to pull through. They're sitting on that wheel. I wish they would have pulled through, because the 2 of them need to work together if they want to stay off the field. Now she is pulling through. Hopefully they work together. In the back, you don't see it on your screen, but Theta pulled up on the front. I'm sorry, it looks like AGD is actually trying to bridge the gap.
So right now in front, we see AKO and Ski. AKO and Ski in the front of the lead lap right now. AKO.
Ooh, they spent too much time negotiating. If the 2 of them had worked together and taken off, maybe it could have worked. but they weren't working full out together, and AGD really stepped up by pulling the field back.
And we just saw Phi Mu think about an exchange, and they thought better of it as well.
They made a good choice. If that Phi Mu rider is able to stay in, she should, because right now it's going to heat up.
That was a good choice, and always a good choice is to check in with our pit reporter, Courtney Robb. Courtney, who's up next?
Are you their head coach?
Huh?
Are you their coach?
I guess. I don't know. You're coaching. First reaction was if she was okay, but I'm glad we handled it really well. We had our next rider ready to go, and she ran over there really quickly. We had a bike ready. It was all about contingency plans, and we really proved it out.
What's the key to keeping up with the pack in this race as we near the end?
Well, this is going to be the fastest part of the race. And with Theta and Melanzana all at the front, we're really going to have to work hard. And we have 3 really strong riders still in the race, so we're going to be just fine, I think.
All right, thanks so much. Good luck.
Yep.
Back to you guys.
Thank you, Courtney. So we just heard from the AZD coach about their post-crash strategy. And now, what is the strategy for the teams on the lead lap? 16 laps to go, Caitlin. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty.
If you have the power, you need to hold on to this lead lap and then try to make a move on an exchange possibly. It slowed down a little bit as those 2 groups, the Ski, AKO, and the rest of the field merged together, but it's starting to string out quite a bit again.
See, Delta Gamma in front right now. That's where they started this race. For the 2nd straight year, they had the Howdy Cox pole position award. Last year, they finished the race in 3rd. See what they can do this time around. DG is in 1st right now. Or I see on the monitor, it was just Alpha Chi Omega, Ski, Delta Gamma, Teeter, and Alpha Gamma Delta. That's now changed just a bit. DG followed by Ski, still in 2nd, and trailing just behind them is Teeter. So a good mix. We've got a sorority, we've got a club, we've got a dorm. And several other teams all in the mix right now. 85 laps through.
There's so many teams on the lead lap, I'm almost scared to watch what's going to happen. If you're a rider, it's going to be really hard to tell who's who, where's where. Do I need to worry about that jersey? Are they on the lead lap?
And Delta Gamma a fall on the exchange, and now they're going to have to make up some ground.
Especially bad timing because Ski was going out for a burnout. They do have someone in the pit, so it looks like they're exchanging. But Teeter followed that Ski burnout, and she's now in the front, it appears.
Yeah, Teeter with a short lead right now. That Delta Gamma Bosch exchange could prove to be costly. Teeter getting ready to burn out and coming in for an exchange.
$2 off new merchandise.
Waiting anxiously to hop on the bike, and hopping back on the bike right now is Chase Wisheimer, the senior. She was 18th in ITTs.
DG is going into turn 1. They have the pack in their sights, so they are going to make it up. But this is all out. It's time to win the race for these teams.
It's been a very strange and a very exciting race as we head into the last leg of it. Last year, the winner was Theta with about 1 hour and 9 minutes.
You know, I'm really interested to see what Theta's going to do. They have not been on the front. Ride On's been on the front more than any other team. So a team like Theta with the depth they have, they're probably very well rested, and we'll see how they make use of that energy in the last just 13 laps to go.
AGD pulling in front. And meanwhile, that's Alyssa Todd on the bike right now. She was 8th in ITTs after not even making the top 50 last year, 74th in ITTs as a freshman. That's a team that's had a really meteoric rise over the last year, both individually and now potentially as a team.
We're looking at the AGD pit. They must be so excited to still be in it. This is what you hope for when you decide to train that hard, and they are there.
Phi Mu getting ready for an exchange now out in pit 4.
Oh boy, hope this goes well. 2 teams exchanging at the same time.
AGD going for the exchange right after Phi Mu, and it's a very smooth one. Phi Mu a little bit slower out of it, but both are error-free.
Melanzana, we have not talked about Melanzana a lot lately. They're right there in the front lead lap. They just did an exchange. Probably not as good of a burn as they should have had going into this last few laps, and it looks like Theta, Teeter, Ski.
Now Delta Gamma getting ready for another exchange. The last one, which was botched and cost them a few seconds. And they're going to keep this rider on the bike a little bit longer. I believe that's Catherine Free on the bike right now, so they elect to keep Free on the bike just a bit longer. Coming up on almost 9 laps left in the race. They're asking right now here at Bill Armstrong Stadium for the teams that aren't in contention right now to move to the side and make way for the leaders. Alpha Chi Omega, the leader right now, they're getting in for an exchange. We also see an exchange coming from Teeter out in pit 2. Delta Gamma getting ready for an exchange, and again they choose to bypass the exchange, so that's twice now in the last couple of laps we've seen that. Why do you think they've twice thought about the exchange, now twice thought better of it, Caitlin?
When it's so fast, you lose so much more ground on an exchange, and you have to work a lot harder to catch back up. But you know, it's not going to slow down, so you might take it when you need to do it.
Teeter getting ready for an exchange again in pit 2. At what point is it too late to make an exchange?
We've seen teams do it with as little as 2 laps to go, but the pace is so fast and there's so many teams on the lead lap that I think some teams are going to choose just to leave their best rider in for a number of laps.
Exchanges from Teeter and FIMU both go over well.
And we see Theta, it looks like Rachel Brown is still in there. She is their top rider. I don't know if she's going to finish or if someone else is going to come in to sprint, but that might be the plan, is if you leave Rachel in there, everyone else has to exchange, but Rachel can take that opportunity to keep going and use that time trialing prowess.
Delta Gamma, they bypassed the exchange the last 2 times. This time they will not. Catherine Free is going to hop off the bike and make an exchange here on lap 93. It's going to be a fun finish. We've enjoyed this one. You're watching the live broadcast of the 2018 Women's Little 500, brought to you by the Subaru of America and Royal Subaru. I believe that is Akayo with a short lead coming around turn 3 right now. You mentioned that while exchanges can be costly in terms of time, especially if they're not executed well, there could be exchanges as late as laps 97 and 98 as Alpha Gamma Delta gets ready for an exchange. They're on the lead lap. And it's clean. Waiting a while to hop onto the bike right there is at AGD, but they do hop on. In front right now is Delta Gamma. On their back wheel is Kappa Alpha Theta, and pulling around them, let's see, looks to be Alpha Chi Omega. Excuse me, Alpha Chi Omega just a half a lap back. It was one of the non-leaders just staying to the side.
Can we talk about Ride On being there still? I love this team.
Ride On just taking their name, literally just riding on through this entire race. They qualified 11th. Their best finish ever was last year in 9th. They've improved every year since 2014, and they remain on the lead lap with 5 laps to go. Still a lot of teams on this lead lap very late in the race, Caitlin.
It looks like we could have that sprint finish. It is late to make a move.
Exchange for Melanzana there at the midpoint of the backstretch.
Melanzana making an exchange right now on the backstretch of things. DG in front, Kappa Theta, Alpha Theta just behind them. That's how this race began. Brooke Hannon now on the bike for Melanzana. Hannon, like probably the most individually talented rider in this race for Melanzana. DG still out in front, Kappa Alpha Theta just behind them. We see Ski, Teeter, Alpha Chi Omega, Ride On, all in the mix right now.
Interesting that DG's been pulling so many laps at the front. I think they just don't want to get boxed in and not have the opportunity to take that sprint. Theta is being dedicated to hanging on second to save that energy for the sprint at the end.
Ride On poking out in front right now. Ride On in the all-orange kit right now. None of the leaders who have their pits in turn 1 are getting ready to make an exchange right now.
Crossing first, 510 meters. Ride On, Ski, Delta Gamma, Peter.
It's Ride On. We see Ski trailing just behind them, Delta Gamma, but there's a bit of space in between all the leaders right now. Kappa Alpha Theta hanging just behind that. You see A Chi O beginning to make a move. An exchange coming from Ride On. 3 laps to go. Delta Gamma getting ready for an exchange. DG, the leaders, the exchange. The girl who's on the bike falls, but the girl who gets on the bike now is able to get on there cleanly. It's Hannah Copins, the junior. She was 4th in ITT, 2nd in missing out, and she gets on the bike with 98 laps gone, just 2 to go. 3 laps to go, so don't mind the graphic right now at the top of the screen. There's 97 laps gone.
Look at Ride On in the front, even at this late stage. And we see Theta starting to make their move towards the front to get in position.
2 laps to go now. Theta coming around the outside on that lead lap. We see DG just behind them, but it's still Ride On who's riding on with the lead.
David, I have no idea who's going to win.
It's going to be a fun one. Certainly a lot of mystery and intrigue. This was a weird race from the go. You said it, Caitlin. We have a couple of the usual suspects and a couple teams that have come out of nowhere here on the lead lap. White flag is out. 1 lap to go. Teeter pulls out in front. Kappa Alpha Theta just behind them. DG and A Chi O both in the mix. Leaders coming around turn 2. Teeter still in front. Theta making their move. Out of turn 3. Theta. Space between Theta and the rest of the pack. Kappa Alpha Theta, a dynasty solidified. 4 race wins in the last 5 years. Kappa Alpha Theta does it again.
That was incredible. We had 11 teams that were there in contention. And that is why Theta's champions. Rachel Brown was in there for more than 10 laps at the end. That is a very long set for your sprinter at the end. But she just stayed in position, took her time, and then she took the lead right when she needed to.
Following them was Delta Gamma in 2nd place, placing 3rd. Caitlin's former team Teeter. Behind them, A Chi O, and rounding out the top 5 is Melanzana, who crawled 23rd. They were hoping to be on the podium. They made up a lot of that ground early. But Caitlin, we discussed throughout that this was a bit of an unorthodox, a bit of a weird race. There were some teams like Ride On who ended up finishing 10th in the race, a very strong finish. But at the end of the day, it was again Kappa Alpha Theta who got it done.
What explosive power at the end. It looked like she was in a different gear than everyone else.
Kappa Alpha Theta coach Ryan Knapp ends up winning back-to-back years with Kappa Alpha Theta. Also won last year as the head coach of the men's winning team, Black Key Bulls. And take a look there, all the hard work. They could finally rejoice. Kappa Alpha Theta. We're going to throw it down to Theta with our pit reporter, Courtney Robb. Courtney, the mayhem, tell us what's going on.
Ladies, all this work in the past year has finally paid off. How does it feel?
Amazing. I trust these girls. We put Rachel in position, and she just crushed it. Absolutely crushed it. We could not ask for anything more. You fucking did it. Sorry.
4 wins in the past 5 years. How did you do it?
Honestly, it's this team, this legacy. This is what we build every single year. And I could not be happier for everyone here.
Guys, you can clearly see it's just absolutely crazy down here. I'm going to send it back up to you for a moment. Back to you guys.
So we saw Black Key Bulls had a bit of an explicit moment in their interview last year. Kappa Alpha Theta following suit, the excitement, the emotion all pouring out at once.
You gotta love that double duo of Sydney Keaton and Rachel Brown, the seniors for that team. Incredible finish for Theta.
Kappa Alpha Theta, their 4th race win in the last 5 years. They have now won 8 times, and standing by with Ryan Knapp, the head coach of Kappa Alpha Theta, we throw it back down to Courtney in the pit. Court.
Thanks, guys. I'm here with Theta head coach. Back-to-back wins for you. How good does this feel?
It's awesome. It's, when you've had some success with the program, you just really want every generation of the girls to get that experience. And it's really nice when you can help facilitate that for the group, because it definitely defines their college career. And so it's just awesome to get, we have 2 first-timers this year that got to experience it in their first race, and it's a life changer for them. And so it's just awesome to play a small part in helping them achieve that.
You spent so much time with these girls. How proud are you of them right now?
Very proud, obviously, but I just am so excited because we talked such a big game all year about how rewarding it will be if we can pull it off, and how much we need to commit ourselves, because it'll be worth it. But if you lose, it's hard to say it was worth it. So it's good that we can prove that it is worth it.
All right, you go in with Black Key Bulls tomorrow, looking for that double-double. How good do you feel going into the men's race?
It's going to be another hard race. The men's race is it's a deep race, a lot of good guys, and so it's going to be, we're starting with a blank slate again. Everybody forgets what you did last year and what you've done before. So it's really just starting at square one again and trying to race our best race we can.
All right, thanks so much. Congrats on the win. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Courtney. Kappa Alpha Theta, in 31 years riding in the race, this is their 28th top 5 finish. This is their 8th first place finish overall. What more can you say about the dynasty that Kappa Alpha Theta has created in the women's Little 500, Caitlin?
There almost are no words, but look how much excitement the house has over this. The alumni base is incredibly strong for this team, and I think you'll only see that tradition continue.
And we had Martha Gillum, who have found the race with Kappa Alpha Theta up earlier in today's race. She's certainly rejoicing right now. An absolutely very exciting race, but let's talk about some of the rest of the field. Delta Gamma, for the 2nd straight year, they sit in the pole position, and for the 2nd straight year, they a very great finish, but they come up just short.
You've still got to be happy with that kind of 2nd place finish, because they put themselves where they needed to be, and it is hard to compete with the power of that team at the end. 3rd, Teeter, what a great finish. I'm excited to see that. AKIO was not a team we talked about. They came in 4th, but tremendous work there.
And how about Melanzana? I know that they were hoping to be on the podium. They were very confident coming into the race, but to be set back the way they were between a bad quals and the 20-second penalty stemming from the crash they caused in the practice race, 5th place is nothing to frown about.
Nothing to frown about at all. I think it's hard when you have that many teams at the end. You can get boxed out. a little bit of luck can come into the position, but they should be still very proud of this finish.
And we have the trophy ceremonies for the first, second, and third place teams coming up soon, but let's touch on Theta Phi Alpha. Their best finish ever coming into today was 15th. That was a year ago. They end up finishing 6th in this race. Courtney Bishop making a world of difference for them.
Yeah, you said 6, but they were 6, but they were there at the end. And I think once teams have a taste of being there for the last lap, being in contention even in the last quarter lap, they're really going to just build on that tradition.
You take a look here, Kappa Alpha Theta, the emotion just pouring out right now. They're actually trying to get rushed over to the podium, but just take a look and the support they got from the community today, and certainly the support they get year in and year out from the sorority, both their alumni and the current sisters. It's one of the many reasons that makes this race so special.
Yeah, you see the riders there celebrating. I tell you, second doesn't feel any less good than the first one.
4 wins in the last 5 years for Kappa Alpha Theta. Last year they were able to do it with a time of 1 hour 9 minutes and change. This year just a few minutes slower, 1 hour 13 minutes and change for Kappa Alpha Theta.
And Kenzie Allen, also of Columbus. Teeter finishing 3rd today.
Teeter's up there getting
1 hour, 13 minutes, 41.164 seconds. Second place, the runner-up, to receive the trophy from IU Student Foundation Assistant Director, Little 5 Races, Andrea Balzano, will be team number 1, Delta Gamma. Delta Gamma team members, Audrey Moreland from Olathe, Kansas, Catherine Free of Indianapolis, Lori Bignell from Carmel, and Hannah Coppins from Mishawaka. And now coming to the platform, they'll be champions for an 8th year. We've had 7 different times that teams have won back-to-back, starting with the Land Sharks. Now the Thetas have done it 3 times, 94 and 95, 14 and 15, and add 17 and 18 to that. Kappa Alpha Theta, 8 times champions of this racing classic. Team members for Kappa Alpha Theta, Laura Ann Watanabe from Columbus, Rachel Brown of McCordsville, Erica Arakawa from Westfield, and Sydney Keaton from Indianapolis. Indianapolis 500 princesses Hannah Thomas and Molly Connor will be presenting floral leis to the winning team. Andrea Balzano has another trophy to present. This, the Martha Lee Armstrong Trophy for the champions of 2018.
For the 2nd year in a row, raising the Borg Warner Trophy is Kappa Alpha Theta. They get their name inscribed on that trophy for the 8th time overall. What more can you say about just another stunning performance from Theta?
True champions here.
Theta raising the bike, rejoicing with their sorority sisters watching on. Certainly a supportive group, the emotions, the joy, all pouring out here for Kappa Alpha Theta. The dynasty on the women's side of the Little 500, their 8th overall win. See the sorority sisters still celebrating there. What more can you say about the rest of the field? Like we said, last year the race went a little bit more according to script over the last lap. It was Kappa Alpha Theta who really flexed their lead on turn 2, but Theta really didn't make a big lead on the final lap until really towards the end of turn 3 is when they turned on the jets.
Yeah, what was interesting about it is the pace of the race got so fast and there were so many teams on the last lap. They chose to have Rachel Brown in for a considerable amount of time.
Yeah, Theta with Rachel Brown on the bike, and ends up winning their 8th overall Little 500. It was another exciting race. The win we thought was going to play a big factor. Certainly did early on. There were a couple of crashes, including some that took out the leaders like DG.
DJ got back quickly. I keep coming back to how many teams were on the lead lap. And if you're Theta and knowing you're sitting there, your lead rider's been in there for more than 10 laps, to really have the nerves to wait for that moment and power through right at the last lap. Incredible win. And let's talk some more about Ride On. Ride On ends up finishing in the Ride On ends up finishing the race extremely strong after really being on nobody's radar. Yeah, they ended up getting 10th, but that doesn't really describe how well they rode. They were leading an incredible amount of the race. Maybe if they had led a little bit less, they would have been able to have the power for the sprint, but incredible heart they rode with. Kappa Alpha Theta ends up winning the race for the 8th time, the 4th in the last 5 years. They are your 31st Little 500 champions. For Caitlin Van Kooten and Courtney Rahm, I'm David Sugarman. Thank you so much for everyone who has helped put this broadcast together. Months in the making. Everybody at the IU Student Foundation and Radio and TV Services. Special thanks to our director, Cameron Spar, Associate Director, Olivia Pavich, producer Galen Clavio, and our technical supervisor Eric Garibrand. For everybody involved, a big thank you. We'll have the men's race coverage tomorrow with Josh Eastern, Jordan Bailey, and Eddie Cotton on the call. Saying so long from Bloomington, Kappa Alpha Theta reigns supreme.